Hello, I'm Jane Tyler from Cybake, and I'm going to be talking to you about how data-driven production planning can help you cut waste and improve your margins. Now, by data-driven production planning, what we mean is simply predicting what you're going to need to make to satisfy customer demand using whatever data you can access. Another term for this is demand forecasting. So I'm just going to use forecasting as an abbreviation for the rest of the presentation. So what I'm going to be looking at today is why forecasting is absolutely fundamental to the success of a retail bakery, why it's so very difficult to get it right, and what tools can be used to make things easier. And I'm going to provide some context by taking us through 3 revolutions in how bakers have improved their forecasting over the years, bringing you bang up to date with the potential of artificial intelligence. And I'm going to finish by leaving you with 5 simple recommendations. So to start, though, I'd like to introduce myself. Now, I've been working on software for bakeries for 25 years. Since I founded Cybake in 1998. Since then, we've grown hugely, and we do help bakeries of all sizes and types improve their profitability using cloud-based, bang-up-to-date information technology. Now, we work with retail bakers, wholesale bakers, and large in-store bakery chains. Until a couple of years ago, we were almost exclusively based in the UK, but now we're growing fast in the US and Australia. So that's it about me. By way of an introduction to demand forecasting, I want to tell you a little story. A few years ago, we bought an old farmhouse in France, and we found one of these in the kitchen. And my neighbour explained to me that it's called a amass, and it was used to store bread because basically the demands of day-to-day life in a French kitchen meant that bread would only be baked once a week. So in that very, very traditional context, there was certainly no need for data-driven production planning. Perhaps you needed to calculate that you needed 2 loaves a day for 7 days. That makes 14 pretty easy. However, I'm not sure how nice this week-old bread would have been, and it's probably a very far cry from the delicious, fresh French baguettes that we enjoy these days. But this is the point, really. It's our love for freshly baked products, married with the difficulty of making them, that led to the development of commercial bakeries. And with the advent of commercial bakeries came the daily challenge of guessing how much you need to make for your customers. In other words, demand forecasting. So, why is forecasting so important? It's really very simple, and I hope it's not stating the obvious, but by producing the right amount of each product line, you're going to get better availability. If you're baking products off in store or making things like sandwiches, you'll be selling fresher product, both which of course is going to lead to increased sales. A customer of ours very recently saw a 15% increase in sandwich sales thanks to improving their forecasting, which across 200 stores makes a very big difference. The other side of the coin is, of course, waste control. Waste is a necessary evil for retail bakers because of their focus on fresh products. But better forecasting will help you optimise it, making sure you get the desired level of waste on different product lines. And you can easily reduce your waste levels by 10 to 15% with much higher reductions on some lines. And all of this, of course, results in improved profitability. Just a quick side note on wholesale bakeries here. It's because many retail bakeries also have a wholesale arm. Now, forecasting is almost as important in a wholesale bakery because very often they will need to start production before they know what their customers want. So they're going to be working from forecasts rather than firm orders. So I think it's really pretty obvious why forecasting is important to bakeries. The problem is, though, that it's very difficult to do. So why is it so very hard? Now, it comes down, I believe, to two fundamental problems. Firstly, there's the sheer volume of calculations needed every single day for a wide range of products in multiple locations. So just imagine this scenario for me. You ring up your store manager because you're not happy about their sales figures. And you say, "Hi, June, look, just not happy about this. Your sales figures are down on some lines. Your waste is way too high on others. You've really got to try to order products based on what you've been selling. So look, before you go home tonight, I need you to get your calculator out and I want you to work out what you need to order for this Monday based on your historical sales." So just take your croissants to start with. Look at your sales over the last 6 weeks. Drop any unusual highs or lows. Work out an average. Add on 10% extra just to drive a bit of growth. Okay, right. Now I need you to do that for all the other 120 products you're going to be selling next Monday. But of course, I need you to put 5% on your donuts, 3% on your bread. And from now on, I need you to do this every single day of the week. So now you've got one very unhappy store manager because it's a way too time-consuming task. In fact, it's an impossible task for a busy store manager to do. Secondly, there is the huge range of factors that influence demand and affect your predictions. And anyone who's ever tried to do this properly knows just how complex it is, and that there are endless things to take into consideration, whether it's the day of the week, the time of the day, the weather, seasonal events, geographical preferences, cultural preferences. Is it the school holidays? Where is the store located? Is it in a mall? Is it in the high street? Is it at the seaside? And so on and so on. So I think, again, most bakers would agree that forecasting is extremely hard. And because it's so hard, they've used computers to help them with the number crunching from the very beginning. And here's where we go back in time a little bit. And apologies if you've heard this story before, but it really does bear repeating. Back in 1951, a couple of guys from Lyons Bakery in England took a look at the first general purpose computer that had recently been developed by the US military, 1951. They saw the potential for use in their bakery, and they went on to develop the world's very first business computer. So just get that again. Bakers were the very first businesses in the world to use computers. You can see it here on this beautiful photo. This computer was called Leo, and it was used for several purposes, but one of the first things they used it for was to take each store's forecast of what they were going to sell and consolidate those forecasts to create production requirements. So that's pretty cool. And Leo was used right up until 1981. But in those early decades, forecasts were still educated guesses. They were often using paper-based sales history and then keying a forecast into the computer. But what came next was facilitated by the advent of EPOS in the 1990s and revolution number 2. So unlike cash registers, which some people might remember, with EPOS, you had the ability to store all your sales transactions, which enabled the software to access a full sales history in order to start making predictions. And this took number crunching to a whole new level. And it enabled software like Cybake to churn through all this historical sales data and make predictions about what each store needs to order and what needs to be produced. So to give you an example of this, every night our software churns through sales data to come up with suggestions on what quantities of product are needed for each store. So looking at the bagel on the top line here, you can see that the system has looked at the last 5 Wednesdays, has come up with an average of 225 a day, has added on 18 to allow for some sales growth, making a total of 243. But it also knows that the bagel is supplied in trays of 16. So it's calculated that 15 trays are needed by that specific store next Wednesday. So in other words, it's doing that job we were asking the store manager to do earlier in the calculator, but it's doing this for every product in every store every day of the week. So these predictions that we're creating can be used not only to manage what the stores are ordering from a central bakery, but also what needs delivering from external suppliers. And also, in fact, for in-store production. And it's worth just taking a closer look at this particular issue. So we believe here at Cybake that there's a huge opportunity here to improve profitability for any bakeries that make products in store, whether that's baking off savouries or making sandwiches, making salads, and so on. Typically, in fact, pretty much always, I would say, there's very little control over what the stores decide to make, which is going to mean a serious loss of sales opportunities, as well as a danger of uncontrolled waste. Most businesses still use manual production plans, which are not regularly updated. And we believe the way forward is a simple application, such as you see here, which tells the store how much to make of each product for each trading period, how much to make for store opening, how much to make for lunchtime, how much to make for that afternoon/evening trade. All the staff need to do is look on their phone, see what needs to be made, and confirm what they have made. And this gives the business true control over the profitability of this part of their operation. Just before I move on, just wanted to point out to you that the forecasting process absolutely should be automated. So the business should simply be deciding how they want their forecasting to work for each product line or product category. And these decisions are then stored in a set of rules in the software, such as you can see here. And these rules process the sales data every night without any human input, creating orders, creating production plans. So revolution number 2 is where we are now. It's well established. It's very much a proven technology that's working very well for many bakers out there. But it does require a human to drive it, to make decisions, to decide what waste tolerances they require, about which period of historical sales data to look at, etc., etc. But we believe that we're about to enter a whole new world where forecasts can be better automated and where the accuracy of forecasting can be improved by artificial intelligence, and more specifically by something called predictive analytics. And this is our revolution number 3. So I'm going to confess right now that I'm not an expert here. It's very much a specialist field. So here at Cybake, we work with AI specialists such as Cat's AI to deliver this very next level of forecasting benefits. And there are a few headline points to get across here. Firstly, AI currently is very rarely used for bakery forecasting. Possibly it's used in some of the very large corporate bakeries, I don't actually know, but certainly with independent bakeries, it's very rarely seen. However, it does have this huge potential both to automate and improve your forecasting capability. It can use weather, it can use events, and lots of other data that influence sales. And because of this, we really do predict that AI will become a commonplace key tool used by most bakeries within the next 10 years. And I would like to think within the next few years. Just to give you some sort of insight into how AI works at a very high level, here's a slide that's been provided by our specialist AI friends called Cat's AI. And the way they explain it is they say that the brain, as they call it, builds up an environment. Now, that's a bit of a technical term. An environment is a description of what's happened each day, what the weather was like. Was it a holiday? Were there any COVID restrictions in place? So it's a picture of the day. That's how I visualize it. And then it overlays the sales data onto that picture, onto that environment for each of those days. Once those two things have been combined, the brain, as they call it, can learn why demand changed. In other words, it finds sales patterns within the data. It then creates future environments, i.e. descriptions of what we expect things to look like next Monday in terms of weather, local events, holidays. And then it overlays these patterns that it's detected over the future environments. And this is what creates the AI-driven demand forecasting. So it's quite complex what's going on. It's quite hard to explain. But this is the dream of most bakers, certainly most retail bakers, a crystal ball that's telling them what to make, taking in as many factors as possible. Now, as I said, this is in the early stages of adoption in the bakery industry, but we did run a trial with Gow's Bakery in Scotland, and the results were very positive. Gow's Bakery opened in Inverness, quite a number of stores and a wholesale operation, lovely business. And if you look at this graph here, the pale orange line indicates the sales, the actual sales taken from the POS system. The dark line represents the AI predictions. And what you can see that is over time, the predictions get much, much closer to the sales. So you can actually see how the system is learning to better predict what the sales are going to be. Now, this is still a project very much in its early stages, and we're really looking forward to seeing how it progresses. So to conclude, what are our recommendations? First of all, if you're not already doing so, use some conventional production software to convert your sales data into powerful predictions. When you get started, try to keep your rules simple, perhaps one rule per product category, and start with a few products. And obviously, once you've seen how it works, you can then extend it from that. Thirdly, do use it for your store ordering. Look at using it for supplier ordering and for your in-store production if you're doing any bake-off or sandwich production in-store. Fourth recommendation would be introduce AI only when you're ready to take your forecasting to the next level. Get going with conventional forecasting first. And the final point is make sure that when you do go down the AI route, choose something that is going to integrate with your production software. Otherwise, you're going to be having the AI software creating lots of forecasts for you, a lot of numbers that you're then going to have to key into your production software. And that's just not feasible on a day-to-day basis. So those are our recommendations. Thank you very much for listening. I do hope you found it interesting, and please feel free to get in touch. My details are on the screen. if you have any questions or any feedback. Thank you.
Jane, thank you so much for talking to us today at Bakery Live about AI in the bakery process and how it can really redefine the landscape of forecasting for bakeries, both independent and mass scale. Could you tell us a little bit about why you wanted to talk about this topic today?
Yes, of course. I think it's because there's such a huge potential for bakeries to improve their profitability. It's as simple as that. And I think that a little bit of effort, a willingness to adopt some new technology, working with partners that understand how to do this can make a very genuine difference to the bottom line. And, for some bakers, it's hard times at the moment, and anything you can do to improve things is very welcome. And I think often the focus is on costs and cost reduction, whereas we believe that by getting forecasting right, you're going to significantly improve your sales, get your customers coming back because you've got that great availability, have fresher product on the shelves if you're baking off. And again, that's going to improve your sales. It's going to get your customers coming back. And it's just something that's not being addressed at the moment. And it's only really some of the big boys, if I can say that, some of the corporate businesses that really pay attention to it in the way that should be paid attention to.
Thank you for that answer, Jane. Of course, one of the additional benefits is to minimise the food waste for bakeries. Could you talk about the impacts of food waste and whether it's a difficult issue for bakers to address this?
It's extremely difficult because if you're a baker that's making fresh product every day, you've somehow got to work out what your waste tolerance is for each type of product. So it's not about it's not about cutting out your waste. If you try to cut out your waste, you're going to lose sales. So for every product, you're trying to figure out, would this business tolerate 5% waste on this? Would it tolerate 20% waste on this particular line that we're trying to grow? So it's a parameter that flexes with different product lines and with different stores potentially. So it is really difficult, and you also need to be, which is a slightly different issue, but you also need to be capturing what your waste is. And bakers tend to be reasonably good at this, but there are still plenty out there that don't actually get their store staff to record what they've wasted every day. Because what happens, if you ever worked in a store, at the end of the day, there's always stuff left on the shelves, and that is by design. But it does need to be captured because that information can then be fed back in to the forecasting tool effectively.
In your opinion, what would be the main benefits of utilising data recorded from the perspective of a retail bakery?
It depends what data you mean. I mean, as I said in my presentation, if you're talking about POS data, EPOS data, sales data, that's already being recorded, and that is probably the main thing that is going to feed into forecasting. For some circumstances, you want to be capturing stock takes, so making sure you know what stock position was at the beginning of the week, for example, for each product line. That's particularly important for any products that have got a shelf life of longer than 1 day. Obviously, I've just mentioned you need to be capturing information about waste. So yeah, I hope that answers your question. Yeah. You need to be capturing your data not only in order to get a great forecast, but also that feeds into things like stock reconciliation, stock management, which is another topic, but bakers know that they need this data, and they have to handle a lot of data. They're very unusual, which again is why bakers were the earliest adopters of computers, because of the sheer volume of data they need to handle and capture on a daily basis.
I know you mentioned in your presentation as well the case study of the bakery that you worked with. In your opinion, what have been the main patterns observed from some of the bakeries that you've worked with? For example, are there any particular times or seasons when bakery sales and products go up significantly?
Yes, I mean, that is really stating obvious. I mean, obviously, you've got Christmas, you've got Easter, it's very, very seasonal, but it does depend on your location. If you're down in Cornwall, they've got a few very busy months coming up right now. Seaside locations. So yes, it varies hugely. Yeah.
And when we talk about working with AI as a new technology, of course, it's progressive, so it grows, it learns. Is there a particular direction that you think in the future where you could see this type of technology transforming forecasting even further than where it is now?
Yes. Yes, I do. I say I'm not an expert in AI, but having talked to people, I mean, an AI engine can take anything into consideration. So, it could be taking into consideration social media data, anything it can get its hands on that's in the cloud, any data that's sitting up there that could be relevant, it could use. But what the human needs to do is almost to point it at that data and say, here is some data that's relevant. So we absolutely know that weather's going to be relevant. We absolutely know that holidays and events are going to be relevant. So currently an AI engine for a bakery would be primarily looking at those pieces of data alongside the sales. But as time goes on, if a baker suspected that something else might be relevant, possibly social media, seeing, things that are happening in the local area, yes, but it is unknown. I think the key, I'm more interested at this stage really of just getting to base one and seeing people using what's available now. And then it'll be interesting to see how it develops 5 to 10 years from now.
Thank you so much, Jane, for taking the time to speak with us at Bakery Live. We're looking forward to seeing how this is going to evolve in the future for the bakery industry. Thank you so much for delivering such an interesting session. And if anyone has any questions, please do reach out to Jane on the platform.
Lovely. Thank you very much.